also served as sort of an alarm to anthropologists to be a little bit more careful with what they were describing as, this group cannibalized, and because there were other explanations for some of the things that they found.
It is part of the problem is that it has become cannibalism has entered the popular culture. So we find a lot of it in horror movies, a lot more than in real life.
Sure.
But it's like vampires and werewolves. There are probably people who really believe they exist.
Right.
The living dead.
Yeah. I mean, this cannibalism taboo has been ingrained in us since the time of the Greeks and Homer with Polyphemus, and from there the Romans, and from there Shakespeare, and it just has steamrolled into Sigmund Freud and Daniel Defoe, and it's just really taken a life of its own. So that whenever you hear that term now, you have this knee-jerk reaction to what cannibalism is.
My guest is Bill Schutt, S-C-H-U-T-T. His book, Cannibalism, a perfectly natural history. So let's talk about real examples of cannibalism. First, in Europe, there was something called medicinal cannibalism, and it was practiced in Europe from the Middle Ages all the way into the early 20th century.
A huge surprise to me, especially given the cannibalism taboo, that every part of the human body was used in just about every country that you can mention in Europe for all sorts of purposes, whether it was grinding up the skull into powder or applying fat to your skin, and to your skin if you had a skin problem, and then consuming it for rheumatism, and drinking blood for epilepsy.
Now, why did they think that blood would cure epilepsy? You report that people would wait at executions to get the blood. Epileptics would wait at executions to get some of the blood.
Yeah, I think this went back to Galen, the Roman physician, and his whole idea of the fact that there are these four humors, one of them being blood, that are incredibly important in any disease that you might get, and you needed to balance these. So with blood being so important, consuming it was thought to have curative powers.
And there was also cannibalism was used for medical treatments in China.
Mm-hmm.
But they have a very different historical relationship to the practice in the West.
I believe so, and I think once again this is because they didn't have those Western taboos.